All right, why don't we get things started? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this really interesting topic today. We have obviously a number of folks with us. We're going to, just a couple of quick things before we start. Just a reminder, this event is going to be recorded. If you can please remain on mute, and if you have any questions, if you could please post them in the group chat, we'll be sure to get to them. And for best results, it may be valuable to put your video into speaker mode so that whomever is speaking will have the largest real estate on the screen. So again, thank you very much for joining this Bayard event. We appreciate it. My name is Mitch Gerson. I'm a vice president with Bayard Advertising in New York City. I am currently not in New York City. I'm in New York, but not in New York City. I'm working from home. And I'm very excited to have our speakers join us, Maury Hannigan, and Angela Huber. And I will do some quick introductions, but if we may, why don't we dive into Angela, if you don't mind giving a quick introduction to your role at SCJ.
Yeah, thank you, Mitch. Really excited to be here with everyone today. So again, my name is Angela Huber, and I lead our early career talent team at SC Johnson. I've been with the company for about 3.5 years, and I've been in the early career recruiting space for a little over 10 years. I have a huge passion for this space, and this summer we were fortunate enough to be able to run a virtual internship experience. So I'm excited to share with you all today some of our key learnings from our experience this summer. So thanks again for having me, Mitch. And I'm coming to you from my home as well in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Thank you, we appreciate that. And Maury, if you don't mind doing a quick introduction as well.
Sure, I'm Maury Hannigan. I'm CEO of SparcStart. I'm coming to you actually from my office in New York City. And SparcStart was started 8 years ago to help TA organizations add video to their recruiting, because we all know that video is compelling and video is persuasive. And now particularly with so much going remote, video has just exploded in the last year. So we have several platforms, one that adds hiring manager video to job descriptions, and another that is a video management platform that makes it easy to organize, capture, share videos. And as you can imagine, this summer we saw a lot of clients using videos in all sorts of innovative ways in their internship programs. Is sort of getting beyond having people log on to the big Zoom meeting and really using it to humanize and connect. So happy to talk about some of the really great examples that we saw this summer.
Yeah, and we thank you, Maury, as well. So as everyone here knows, this has been a challenging year. It goes without saying, but I have a niece in particular who goes to NC State, and her internship was canceled. I'm watching a lot of these internships getting canceled, and as a business in recruitment, marketing, and advertising, we look at this space trying to figure out how do we help clients adapt to this current situation, and it's going to continue for the foreseeable future. In chatting with Angela and SC Johnson, I was just so impressed with their ability to not just adapt, but to create a program that worked and that resulted in students who may not have had an actual opportunity to participate in an internship with SCJ, to actually not only participate, but legitimately get something out of it. So Angela, if you don't mind, I'm gonna start with you. If you don't mind, maybe sharing a little bit about what was the internship experience like pre-COVID? And it feels like a million years ago. I know it was only a few short months ago, but pre-COVID, how would that experience have been? And then, of course, we can get into the changes that you've had to make.
Yeah, definitely happy to share. So pre-COVID, our summer interns were all in the office. So we have a few different office locations in Racine, Wisconsin that our interns would sit in. And then we also have an office in Chicago, Illinois that we would have interns sit in as well. So everything was face-to-face. Now it was project-based work. So they are working on, real robust projects over the summer. But definitely face-to-face, a lot of executive engagement, a lot of networking events, fun get-to-know-you events, opportunities to really share, what our culture is like at SCJ. So that's what we were planning for coming into the summer of 2020. And then COVID hit, and in March, we were all sent home, and I'll be the first to say that in March, I was not expecting to have to plan a virtual internship. I don't know about any of you, but I thought we were going to be home for 2 weeks and then we were going to be back in the office and our interns were going to be on site. So and I know we'll talk about key learning, so I won't skip too far ahead, but that was one of my biggest key learnings, was that I waited really a long time to make the decision because I was hoping that we'd be able to bring our interns on site. But once we made the decision, we did, our leaders were excited about still giving these interns the opportunity. And, I know every company was not in that position and was, worried about keeping just their full-time employees employed, but we were very fortunate at SCJ that we were still able to keep our summer interns. So we moved to a virtual environment, and we had about 65 summer interns working virtually for SCJ.
And how did you interview, like, prior? I'm assuming these interviews took place in person. How did that change, or did you already have a group of interns ready that were kind of waiting for, how does this all work?
Yeah, like most companies, we did most of our interviewing in the fall prior to the summer. So fall and spring is when we completed our interviews. So we did not have to interview in a virtual environment for last year's intern class. Now, we're all in fall recruiting right now, and that's a whole new world of virtual interviewing at the moment. But last year, we got the opportunity to meet all of our candidates face to face.
So was there ever a moment prior to kind of figuring out the plan, which I'm curious to hear more about, where there was a discussion, let's just cancel internships? Because I did see a number of companies, again, I mentioned my niece earlier, where it kind of abruptly got canceled. And it's understood because there are some virtual internships or internships that really needed to be on site for whatever reason. Was there a moment where that was under consideration?
There were a lot of conversations around it, and we have interns across all of our functions, and some functions, as you can imagine, it's a little bit easier to adjust to a virtual environment, where other functions, again, we're like, how are we supposed to give them this experience in a virtual environment when they were going to be on our plant floors, working directly with line managers or whatnot. So there was a lot of discussion around it, and I'm really happy and proud of our leaders for deciding to keep the internship, because the easier thing would have been just to cancel it. But we really felt that even though it wasn't going to be the experience that they were originally planning for, it was better than no experience at all. And so that was what we just kind of kept going back to, is we're going to still give them a really robust experience as an intern. We hope to get something out of it as a company, but we really felt committed to these interns to give them some type of experience, because the alternative was they probably weren't going to get any experience. It's not like other companies. I mean, there were a few, but there weren't a ton of companies that were looking to hire a bunch of virtual interns.
Yeah, and I've actually, as I mentioned, I've seen some of these programs unfortunately not work. And having children in school learning virtually, I know, these are little kids, but there are challenges inherent in the virtual aspect. How did you and the team conceptualize the internship? How did you go from, okay, we're gonna try to make this work, to how do we make this work? Because that's a big gulf there. Yeah.
So a few things. I think the first thing was just getting really close to the business. We did not do this ourselves in HR or in TA. We got really close to the business, and we worked closely with them on adjusting internship projects to be able to be executed in a virtual environment. So, for some functions, again, it was easier. For others, we really had to help them get creative. But I really give a lot of credit to the hiring managers that were able to adjust their projects. So I would say that was the first one, just making sure that the work that we were asking these individuals to do could be done in a virtual environment. I think the second thing that was really important was to set clear guidelines around evaluation with both the interns and then also the hiring managers or the intern managers. So making sure it was very clear to them, and how are we going to assess the talent in this virtual environment? And then for an intern, what is going to be expected of you in this virtual environment? So we were able to really kind of adjust and create that evaluation process for a virtual experience. And then I think another thing that really helped with this summer was just the peer mentors. So in the past, we've had peer mentors, but this year we bulked it up a little bit more and we offered more than one peer mentor. And sorry, when I say peer mentor, I mean like a buddy within the company that they can go to ask those questions that they might not feel comfortable going to their manager on. And in a on-site situation, you'd have the person in the cube next to you, or you would, organically establish these types of peer buddies. But in a virtual environment, we were a little bit nervous about that. So each intern received a peer buddy. They also received an alumni buddy. Some of our interns had connections with our employee resource groups. So we just wanted to make sure that they felt supported, maybe even over supported sometimes, but in the virtual environment, they didn't feel like, they were out on an island working by themselves.
The idea of the support is interesting because you can get lost in a virtual environment, because when you're sitting there, and all of us probably on this line right now, we've all worked from home now for a number of months, but we also have a number of years of professional background behind us to be kind of disciplined to be able to do that. Did you find, and I'm curious because I'm going to segue to Maury in a moment, from a tech perspective, from a technological perspective, what did you utilize to keep in touch with these folks? And what were the struggles or what were the wins within that technology?
Mm-hmm. So Maury and I connected, and we did not meet each other until recently. And I wish we maybe would have met a little bit earlier, because we did not use as much technology as some of her clients have. But what our interns did say is that even in a one-on-one meeting with someone where you could turn on your video or you could leave your video off. I think we probably all experience this, right? Someone calls you unexpectedly and you're like, oh, do I turn my video on or do I don't? They really found that the opportunities to connect just via video in those one-on-one moments, those one-on-one meetings with their manager, when videos were turned on, they felt a lot more connected than when it was just voiceover. So we encourage, we didn't mandate it, but we did encourage everyone to turn on their videos, even if it was that unplanned check-in, because it's just an opportunity to definitely create more of a bond when you're looking at someone face to face. So we used, I guess, the tools we already had, but Maury, I think, has a lot of really great tools that we probably could have used.
I know, thank you for that. So, and Maury, for you, what has the pandemic taught you for clients and customers, how to utilize video better? Because for those of you who are not familiar with Spark, Maury was doing this before video was really cool and easy to use. And basically we're all using video now. So what are your thoughts, Maury?
And understand what our platforms are all recorded video, all informal video. So just video clips. And people hadn't been using a lot of video because if you don't have even a very basic video management system, it's hard to control them, hard to keep track of what's been viewed, if you need to approve them, all that kind of thing. But what we found is people started to really understand that there's a place for informal and recorded video. You can pull everybody onto a Zoom meeting, but in the same way, all of us on this meeting right now, we're not getting to know each other. I can see little thumbnails of people, but I don't feel connected to any of you except for the few familiar names. But we saw clients do some really creative things, like when interns started, they asked the interns just to make a quick video introducing themselves. And it was things like, what kind of food do you like? What sports teams do you follow? Something to just get to know you a little bit as a person. And then distributed that to the rest of the team. So if you did have to interact with the intern, you felt like you'd been introduced to them, you got a little bit, and then did that backwards. People on the team made short introductory videos. So the intern had a little sense of who this person was before they had to reach out to them. They had a sense of their style. Video is great for that. You get a chance to see, are people, very focused and on point, and when you connect with them, you better be ready to go? Or is somebody going to sit back and chat a little bit and be a little more ease? And you get to prepare and know what's coming at you a little bit if you've seen them and heard them before. So we saw people use video really well there. One of the other things that I really liked with video is having interns just do 2-minute summaries at the end of the week, to just talk about what they're doing. So they can write a memo. And these actually, in one case, went to the head, kind of to Angela's equivalent, the person in charge of the intern program. So hopefully they're one-on-one with their direct supervisor all the time. But the head of the program just wanted to gauge how things were going. And you can ask people to write memos, and that's a bit of a pain, and it's hard to read between the lines there. But when you see an intern that just does, a 2-minute, here's what I worked on this week, here's what I got done, here's where I'm stuck, this is what's going well, here's what's not going well. You can see the animation in their face. You can judge their voice. Is this somebody who's completely energized and pumped and really feeling good about this? Is this somebody who's disconnected, who's feeling lost, who's maybe needs somebody to jump in and help? There were a lot of those kinds of checks. I think to the interns, it was just make a quick 2-minute, update at the end of the week, and just for us to see what you're doing this week. But it really did help judge the tone and the tenor of things, so that you didn't have somebody 6 weeks later you go, oh gee, their direct supervisor wasn't that good connecting with them and doing the remote thing, or they were learning and having their own challenges and so forth. So you got to catch things early, but it made it easy for people to do that. When you've got a simple platform, you record it, reshare it, and so forth. It puts the humanity back in, and that's what we need.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. I think this is also indicative of how SC Johnson goes to market. There's empathy. And that's something that I think we've been seeing a lot more of, thankfully. And even at Bayard, our approach from a recruitment marketing perspective and how we're looking at employer branding. And I think things like what you guys are offering and what SC Johnson, what Angela, what you guys did is show tremendous support and empathy for these kids that would not have had these opportunities had it not been, number one, for the literal technology to do it, and also the interest and the effort that you guys put into it. I'm curious, Angela, you already alluded to it, but I'm going to dive into it now. What challenges popped up that you kind of thought would happen but didn't expect? Like, what were some of the challenges that you may have encountered during this process?
Yeah, so first of all, I think I'm just impressed at how adaptable everyone was. So there weren't as many challenges as I think I was expecting moving forward. I think technology was a big challenge, though. I mean, I think everyone has probably experienced this. When technology works well, it's great. When it doesn't work well, it's challenging and it makes people nervous. And so we did have a few situations where interns had to present and the technology wasn't working properly, and then the intern gets a little bit nervous and then they don't present as well. So I think technology was a challenge that we adapted to kind of mid-year, and made some changes where we were asking interns to present live to leaders. It wasn't going very well due to technology. So then therefore we actually changed it and we had them record their presentations for some functions. So I think we were adaptable in the moment, but that was something that we didn't see coming. And then I would say I've been in a lot of focus groups with other companies. And I think that something that I've heard from a lot of those individuals and those companies is that they were expecting, I guess, there to be a challenge with senior leader engagement in a virtual environment. And what they found was that senior leaders were able to be more engaged. And at SCJ, our senior leaders have always been engaged in the program. But I think that from a competitor standpoint, from those that I've talked to, it was, I guess, great for them, a little bit challenging for us, because I think that was something that set us apart, that their senior leaders were able to just be more engaged in this environment, which I thought was really great as well. Other challenges, We didn't see many. I think that, the biggest one from the intern standpoint is that they're potentially going to be asked to accept an offer without stepping foot on campus or, on our site. And I think that that's a big challenge. Again, I might be a naive person, and I was thinking, oh, we'll just bring them back to the office in the fall. And that's not going to, probably not going to be able to happen because of where we're still at with COVID. So I think from an intern standpoint, they may be feeling a little bit hesitant, and I'm going to have to accept an offer without even being on site at any point. But again, that was something that we didn't see coming.
And that's interesting. So from that perspective, what challenges do you foresee as we continue living in a COVID world in a work environment to onboard, and that's a bigger question. We'll stay focused on the interns, but to onboard folks that have not physically ever been there, and these are students, and they're not, experienced professionals that have kind of already had these sort of moments in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find anyone from any of the students or the interns struggle in particular? Was it a and what was the struggle? Was it the disconnect from physical one-on-one or in person? Because it sounds like the leadership team did its best to kind of make this work. So were there any specific instances where things really just didn't work the way you'd hoped?
Not specifically. Like, I think that interns definitely had a little bit of a harder time in the beginning because the projects are very robust, and it's up to the intern to kind of bring the project to life and determine where they want to go with it. I think in the beginning they did have a little bit of a harder time going down the right path, some of them, but for the most part they're adapting well. Their final few weeks or months of classes were online, so they were starting to kind of get used to that. So I was actually really impressed. And, one of the concerns that I had going into the summer was that I was pretty confident we were going to give a really great experience to the interns. But what I was nervous about was, were our hiring managers going to feel like they were getting benefit from having an intern for the summer? And what I was really pleasantly impressed with was the output that the interns did provide to SCJ on their projects. I think that they did a lot of really great work. They're doing work that we're now, continuing on after they've left with us. So, I would say, like, overall, while these individuals are not professionals, they've been around technology basically their whole lives. They're adapting really quickly, and they want to do a good job for you. They want these full-time offers. So we saw them working really hard this summer.
Yeah, you bring up an excellent point around the technology piece. My 9-year-old daughter just helped me update the new iOS 14 and change my phone around. So with that said, I'm curious, Maury, from because from an interaction perspective, from the technology that you have, and I know you already mentioned some of it, what are some good best practices if a company wants to do a virtual internship, or even expand this beyond virtual internships? Just there's a new reality to possibly having to onboard without ever seeing somebody in person. How do you use your platform, or how are you seeing folks utilizing video and that sort of technology to just keep folks engaged?
Yeah, the folks that we're seeing use it well are doing, we keep referring to it as purpose-driven video. They've stopped trying to make these generic videos, with feel-good shots of the building and that kind of thing, and really focusing on who's my audience for this video, what is it they need or want to know, and to some degree, how quickly can I tell it to them? Particularly when you're dealing with interns. Interns do not want to read long documents. And so the idea is, what do they need to know for onboarding? What do they need to know about getting, let's assume that they're going to be on your benefits plan if they start, whatever. What are the things they need to know? Where do they need to go? How do they need to get there? That's when people are using video well. They're not overproducing it. People thankfully have gotten comfortable with informal video. It doesn't have to be boom mic'd. It doesn't have to be lit Thankfully, it doesn't ever have to be read from a script. If you want to ask the biggest mistake, please don't read scripts on your videos. One of the great things that video does is give you credibility and authenticity. Sorry for the overused words, but the reality is you can just talk to people. And that has an engagement factor and a credibility factor that's really valuable. So we're seeing all the way through the companies that are doing it well are saying, what do people need to know? How can we get them that information? Just staying back with the intern piece right now, one of the things that we're seeing that I think is just great is one of the real engines of intern recruiting has always been alum. Right? The alum go back to their alma mater, they're all excited, they're succeeding at the organization, and so for other students, it's like, wow, you went to the same school I went to, you had the same curriculum I did, and you're succeeding at this company. That bodes really well for me. Now none of those alum can go back. And you've lost that incredible, powerful evidence of success for these potential interns or potential hires. And so doing video, we're encouraging people, they're doing lots of short videos by school team and saying, I went to, Michigan, I lived in Millot Hall, and now I'm succeeding at SC Johnson or wherever. And those kinds of things put a human face back on it. They're short. Students, I'm sorry, but they have short attention spans. Tell them what they need to know and let them move on. But just splicing a bunch of those together is just a wonderful success reel of, graduates of your school succeeding at our company. Come be one of them. It's a really powerful message. And when people get over the idea, oh, we need to pull in a production company, we need to do this, as a 6-month project. No, you don't. All they need to do is pick up their phone and introduce themselves and, connect themselves to the school. So we're seeing a lot of really wonderful things there.
You brought up a good point about overproduction, and I know you and I have spoken about this in the past. I think we've all seen the reality of even some of the biggest shows in the world producing their shows from their attics, like some of the talk show hosts and news programs. And the first few weeks in the pandemic, watching the Today Show, at least for me, with them reporting from their homes was just like, I can't believe we're in this moment. But there's that authenticity, and you bring up a really good point that it's needless to be overproduced. How are companies housing this content and using this information? Are they distributing it on email? Are they hosting it on their site? What are some of the best practices you've seen over the last few months for company to take this new content and not have all the slick videos? How do they express it out there?
The real answer is all of the above. When you get back to the idea of purpose-driven video, it's who's our audience and what do they want to know, and therefore where are their eyeballs? How do we get it to them? If it's just attraction, we're seeing a lot of social media. If it's nurturing campaigns, we're seeing them drop links to videos right in emails. Obviously, putting it on websites, sending it directly to candidates through outreach, putting it on landing pages. I mean, that's the whole idea. And one of the reasons we designed our platform is when you've got all your video in one place and with a single click, you can drop it anywhere you want to drop it. You make sure you got the right video in the right place for the right audience. And that's easy to do. If they're doing virtual career fairs, you take those alumni videos and you make sure they're part of the career fair. We've got people from, our platform just toggle over to Brazen and drop in their alumni videos right into their virtual career fairs. So it really is, the answer is everywhere, but it's not the same. Again, I hate to keep going back to the same 2-minute, we have a recruiting video, that's a 2-minute, doesn't really answer the questions of the engineer grad who's going to come to our manufacturing plant, or the computer science who's going to join our IT department, or the finance grad who's really interested in our treasury operations. They're really producing lots of little, very focused videos. So the person, that is that computer science person who's interested in working with your cybersecurity, they can watch a really short product manager video who talks about, hey, here's what we're doing with cyber because it's important for our company too. You can come be part of this team. That's really relevant to a group of students. There's another group of students who are really interested in what kind of finance projects they could work on. So all you need is a product manager, a division head, somebody who will pick up their phone and record a really short, hey, here are the kinds of things we're working on, come join us. Powerful video.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I wasn't even considering that. It's not, I think what's interesting is the ease of video, whether you could do it on your phone. You could do it sitting at a desktop. It's that it's more informal. It's more off the cuff. There's so many more opportunities to engage. Maury, you brought up a good point about virtual events, and that's something we didn't really talk about. Angela, from your perspective, normally I imagine you'd have a whole calendar, you'd have a travel schedule, be looking at these events, have physical things that you'd be like, we need 100 water bottles, we need 10,000 highlighters. How has SCJ adapted, and what are your thoughts for how you're going to get these interns in the fall and beyond? Because I would guess for all of us sitting here, as much as I don't want to say this out loud, we've got at least another 10 months or so of this as being the new normal. How are you adapting to that? I'm curious.
Yeah, great question. I mean, and it's definitely been a big adaptation for SCJ in general, because our recruiting in the past has been very, high touch, personal. Our intern class is maybe smaller than a lot of companies on the call right now. We have around, 65 each summer. And so we're able to really connect with our candidates throughout the recruitment process. So this was a big switch to us. We had never participated in a virtual career fair or virtual events really. So it's a learning. We're definitely learning all of the platforms, which has been interesting at the same time. But it's going well. And we're using some video actually through our recruitment process with a tool called HireView. So that's been really helpful for us to connect with students when it's convenient for them. So that's an adjustment for us this year. But we're really trying to still stay high touch. We're trying to connect. We're trying to build those relationships in a virtual way. So I joke with the team, they're not in airports and they don't have to worry about delayed flights and all of that type of stuff that is a benefit of not having to travel. But it has been a lot of time in front of the computer. But again, there's not an alternative, and we want to make sure we're meeting students and we're meeting the right students and giving the students opportunities. So we're just rolling with it.
Yeah, no, and gosh, I haven't been on a flight in 6, maybe 7 months. It seems so impossible to fly right now. From a cost savings perspective, because that's an interesting thought that I've had for a number of folks that I chat with regularly. So you've got HR pretty much staying in place. You're not traveling. Some of that cost saving, is it being put into technology? Is it being put into how do we, send out the welcome packet, whatever it is, to our interns or however we're interacting with these folks? Or is it just going back into the bottom line and just hold on to it? And I don't know, not to reveal anything specific for SCJ, but just conceptually, what have you seen even maybe with some of your peers?
Yeah, I think the thing about the virtual environment is that it does give, I think, companies an opportunity to engage in places where they may have not engaged before in the past, right? So so thinking about it kind of to reverse your question, companies who may not have had a budget in the past to go to these schools, are now able to go. And we're seeing that as well. We've expanded a little bit of our recruitment because we're not having to, pay to fly to these places. So I think that's a benefit. And yes, we're putting dollars into technology. And then we're also, putting dollars back into the bottom line as well, because if we are able to save, that's a good thing too. We're trying to still get our products into the hands of the students, because I know that is a fun part of going to a career fair, is walking around and getting the product and the tchotchkes. And so we're trying to still make sure that we're able to, send product out. So, and I think that just allows students to, again, connect with our company in a way that they have in the past. So we're still sending product, not as many water bottles, but a lot of soap and hand sanitizer. But
I imagine.
Trying to stay connected.
Yeah, and Maury, from your perspective, thinking on some of these virtual events and just the technology in general, have you seen anyone in particular? And again, it could be somebody that you're working with, or maybe that you'd like to work with, or just a company in general that seems to be utilizing this authentic video well. because what I see, and I know we've already chatted about this, when I see these pre-produced videos in my head, at least I look at them as that's before COVID. It feels impossible to have these groups hanging out, having a good time, socializing. So from a video perspective, to keep those touch points and just even not necessarily just for virtual internships, how are you seeing companies utilize, kind of this informal video to just keep in contact with their colleagues?
Yeah. We're actually tracking more than 100 companies that we can find more than 100 recruiting related videos, right? And that doesn't include any video interviewing, because those things obviously aren't discoverable online, and you can't be in this business without having good friends that are sourcers and learning your share of Boolean. So we're pretty good at looking at where people have got it. But I mean, so we're not talking about 2 or 3 companies that are really producing a lot of informal video and getting it out there and posting it and so forth. But we've got more than 100 that are doing this on a regular basis. I think, and those are the companies pretty much that have figured out how to really manage the approval process. A bunch of them are our clients because the approval process is baked in, but that's the real sticking point with video. Video files are really large, so you can't email them back and forth, which gets tough, and trying to keep track of what's been approved and what's appropriate and what's out there. We have seen some rogue video get out there that we kind of looked at and went, ooh, I think somebody wants to pull that one back. Good intention, but maybe not where you wanted to go. But again, the good companies, they've got a process down, and it can be really fast and really easy to do that. So they're just going back, and I mean, to some degree, they're freed up from this idea that it's got to be this big production. I'll give a wonderful shout out to Covance, because they produced one of my favorite videos. They used our system. They had employees do quick clips on what Pride Month meant to them. And then they sliced them all together, and then during Pride Month, they shared it on social media. It was wonderful. It wasn't scripted. They just asked employees, just tell us, what it means being part of this organization and being here. And that's really wonderful. We're seeing, I think, the people who are doing the best job with video, with diversity and inclusion, are the ones that aren't finding their one person of color to make their one video, or, God forbid, the old stock photo of, one Asian, one Black person, one Hispanic person. But they're having so many different kinds of people. They're understanding diversity. It can be, age, it can be education, it can be national origin. And they're just getting the idea out there, this is not a monoculture. There are all kinds of people who succeed here. And when you can produce a whole body of work, it's easy to do that. If you're trying to do it on 1 2-minute video, you can't show enough. But when you've got enough people telling their stories, and you understand that the organization is not all 20 to 30-year-old white men, it's lots of people that are thriving and contributing to the organization, then you start to build a really credible case. So those are the kinds of things we're seeing that we really get excited about. It's a different kind of communication, and a much more honest communication. It's not slick, and sometimes you have audio that's not perfect and so forth, but the communication factor is so much higher. It's really great stuff.
You brought up something that really stuck with me just now, and Angela, I'm going to throw this to you in a second because it applies to the SCJ brand and how you go to market. The concern about too loose of a video, and there's the need. I know Spark, for example, has a platform that requires approval because, to your point, you don't want someone speaking on behalf of your brand in a very public way on Facebook, on Twitter. Maybe you're doing something that is off-brand, anything that you'd want to be associated with. And how does that, from a control perspective, so that companies are comfortable? Because I know we're speaking a lot about authenticity and empathy, but there are those possibilities of somebody simply putting their foot in their mouth in a very public way that could be detrimental to themselves and to the company. How do you deal with that, Maury? Or how does the platform do?
You get a platform that has an approval process baked in. So people record video, it gets uploaded to, in our case, the Amplify platform, and someone designated in the company as an approver has to look at it and say, fine, thumbs up. And, you know, on the back end, we get to see the videos that aren't approved. And really, most of the time when they're not approved, it's either because someone has said something proprietary. You know, they get over enthused and it's like, if you want to manage a $28.6 million budget, it's like, oops, that wasn't supposed to be public. It generally, we don't see any things that would make a company go, oh my God, I can't believe they said that. It's more people just probably sharing more than they should, certainly for, you know, consultants, finance people, naming clients, you know, hey, we're working on the Marriott account here. It's like, no, that wasn't supposed to be out there. So it's not the really egregious things, but yes, you do want things on brand. You want them brand appropriate, brand approved. And, you know, quite frankly, you don't have to buy some big 6-figure video management system. I mean, the Amplify system is $1,000 a month. This is not a big investment and it makes it really easy. So that's what companies are doing. They're just saying, just give us a good basic, you know, video management system and it all gets automated. So that's not really a problem. The technology makes that easy.
Yeah, and the reason I was thinking through that is because I'm sure there are some companies out there thinking, you know, hey, everybody's doing video. It's free, it's easy. Let's just use Facebook. Let's use Twitter. There's that loss of control, which as a marketer scares the hell out of me. And I try to make sure I hesitate before I press send or submit. And we've all had those moments where maybe we shouldn't have sent something out, and thankfully you're able to delete it. Angela, from your perspective, and by the way, keeping an eye on time, I want to give everyone a chance if they have any questions. And of course, if you guys had anything else you wanted to add. But Angela, from your perspective, to protect the brand and just to keep the integrity of SCJ intact, did you have anything in place from what your interns can and can't do? Or would that be a concern if they had access to a tool, a video tool, where they could kind of upload their thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the tool that Maury has is great. When I did a demo with her, little plug for Maury, but it's it really does allow you to have control over what you're sending. So I think that would be key moving forward for us and for other companies, because, you know, you do want to make sure that you have, you know, insight to what's being put out there. And I think also just creating some guidelines ahead of time. So right now we're not using a video platform like that, but we do have guidelines on, you know, how to use social media as an employee, you know, how to share out what you did over the summer when you go back to school as an intern. So we do give our interns very kind of just clear guidelines and principles on, you know, how to share and what they can share, and, you know, making sure that they're not sharing too much. So I think that, you know, the guidelines and the principles paired with an approval process would allow you to keep control of that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And as an agency, we're seeing from a social media perspective, in all the years I'm doing this is probably the most interested. I'm seeing two areas: employer branding. How do we restate who we are as a company in 21? And we're not hiring right now, but how do we make sure when we're in 21, how are we explaining who we are, what we do, and why we do it? And the other piece is the social media aspect of it all. How do we present ourselves out there on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Glassdoor, all of these social media touch points, which pre-COVID, it was kind of formulaic. You need to have a good profile, you need to have X number of job ads out there. You know, it was pretty simple. So hopefully everybody out there has kind of seen some of, you know, obviously in real time, how SCJ has managed to accomplish this task, and how you can utilize tools like Spark or social media or anything of that nature. I'm going to throw it out there to anybody who's listening in right now, what questions you might have. I'm putting everybody on the spot. So in the interim, before some of those questions, I'm assuming there are going to be a few. Was there anything else, Maury or Angela, that you wish to add?
I'll just jump in and, just remind people, particularly with interns, in some companies, you can get people who are video phobic. Thankfully, Zoom has gotten us over this to a large degree. You accept this is how you look on camera, this is how you sound on camera. But for the interns, it's kind of a shrug. You know, we've seen people, oh, we're going to start using video, and they're going, yeah. Okay. It's like you're talking about, oh, we're going to use a cell phone. This is so commonplace for them that it's often a much bigger deal for the company than it is the interns. They're used to, and they're used to informal video. You know, we've heard really large companies go, oh, we're Fortune 10 company, we're very professional. And students look at videos all the time that are very informal, and it feels more natural to them. None of us want to be, you know, advertised to. Nobody wants to feel like some commercial is being put in front of us that's not real. So it's not that you're losing some of your cachet by having informal video. It's really adding credibility and getting students to really look at it. They'll click off a formally produced thing in almost no time, but they'll listen to a peer or an alum talk.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I just want to make sure that no one has any questions. I'm not seeing any questions coming in. And obviously we don't, and I would love to give folks a few more minutes back in their afternoon, but unless there, oh, we do have a question. I'm sorry, I spoke too soon. Well, thank you, Deborah. Excellent session for sharing best practices and insights. Oh, thank you for arranging it. You're welcome. It wasn't a question, but we appreciate it. Well, if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like to know more about, if it pops up in your head in the next few hours or this afternoon, please simply email me. You can utilize the link and just share your question, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Oh, I do have a question though. Here, let's see. Angela spoke about sending swag items out to students in lieu of not being able to meet face-to-face. Curious how that works. So that's a good question. Are you sending items through career services, Angela, getting them out, or specific students once they're formally involved in the interview process?
Yeah, great question. And we discussed this a lot as a team too, because we would have brought swag to like an information session where we maybe had 50 to 100 people, which we're not doing anymore. For those schools that are still on site, we have sent products to the career centers. And then once we get a little bit further in the process is when we're sending care packages directly to the students' homes.
That's great. And I got another question. Again, this is from I apologize. I'm going to mangle the name Natalie. I apologize. Angela and Maury, thanks for sharing your insights today. Can you share what engagement activities you've hosted, if any? We're considering lunch and learn. So that'd be for either of you, please.
Yeah, so this summer we did a lot of, so we did, lunch and learns with our employee resource groups. We did, happy hour type events with our leadership. Our CMO hosted a s'mores event. So we actually sent the stuff to make s'mores to the students' homes. We did a painting class with our interns this summer. So we hired an outside vendor to come in and lead us all through, a painting workshop. So a lot of different ways to engage. Some of the feedback that we did receive is that while those were nice, sometimes it didn't give them an opportunity to really interact. So I think Maury said it, like, we're all on this call together, and maybe if we were all painting, we would still not get to know each other. And so, we're thinking for future, making sure that our events are giving students the opportunity to not students necessarily, but interns the opportunity to get to know each other. We did a really good breakout session with a company called Milwaukee. They're based out of Milwaukee, where they actually broke the students into smaller groups as part of the session. So they would ask a question, you would go into a room with 2 or 3 other interns, you would talk, and then you'd come back. And I think that type of an event really helps the interns to connect. And then another event that we did that we received really good feedback on was it was a project-based event. So they were looking at a product of ours, breaking up into smaller teams, and then coming back and presenting to leadership. And again, they really enjoyed that because they got the opportunity to engage in smaller groups. So I would just encourage you that no matter what type of engagement you're looking at, just make sure you kind of keep those things top of mind. Are you just all participating in something together, or are you doing something where you actually get to interact with each other?
Good. I'll just add the one that I saw that I thought was really terrific. It was actually a Zoom, is they had everyone pull up a backdrop of their favorite sports team. And that gave people, they started immediately trash talking. And it gave people something to feel a little more connected, whether, you hated the Rangers or you loved the, Cowboys or whatever. So that kind of thing, if you're presenting a topic, it's a little bit hard. You need to balance that you're not asking people to reveal things personally that they're not comfortable with. But food is another one. People, you've seen, sort of cooking sorts of things where people make or show how to make a dish they really like to make. Something that's not overly personal, but something that gives some personality and just a reason to feel like you got a little, you talk about favorite movies, that kind of thing. There are enough of those kinds of things that can be fun. Now, they're not a lunch and learn that you're learning about something with the topic, but those can be good connection kinds of events if you do a theme to them.
And I thought of something that came up in I've been asked, again, from a recruitment marketing perspective, the agency Bayard, what can you do at Bayard to help us, kind of let folks feel like they're part of this and they're not far flung or, located elsewhere. And I observed that LinkedIn, I thought it was very clever. They were sending out, this is pre-pandemic, candles that had the scent of Chicago, New York. Hopefully New York was pleasant. I'm a New Yorker, not so bad. But something to kind of tie you to the location where you normally would be. And with some snacks, if you can't be a physical participant in the office, to create these fun little, onboarding boxes. And that's the type of work that we're doing now with certain clients, is creating these little fun things that are just at least a touch point beyond that comes with your computer and all the usual things. But here's, local pretzels that they make here in New York and only in New York, that sort of thing. So just all various things. So, we've chatted about video, the physical touch points, and of course the programs themselves. And I can't thank you both enough today. You both did a fantastic job, and thank you so much for your participation. And if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to let me know and I'll pass it along and we'll keep the conversation going. So I guess that's it for this afternoon. Again, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon. And thank you, Angela and Maury.
Good. Thanks, Mitch.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for participating. We appreciate it.